Have you ever hit a season where it feels like life knocks the wind out of you? I mean, one moment everything is steady, your plans are in motions, your routines really are on autopilot, and then all of a sudden, it feels like your world is shifting. It may be that a job falls through, your relationship starts to crumble, or maybe your child is struggling. And you're just sitting there like, God, this is not what I planned for. And what makes it even harder is you don't just have to face what's happening, you still have to function while it's happening. Work, parent, smile. And it's one of the hardest things to do because you have no control and your mind wants to fix everything. You start replaying scenarios in your head. You start trying to predict what outcomes are going to happen. You're always trying to stay one step ahead. But the truth is, sometimes the only step left is really just to surrender. And that's actually where I am right now because you might not know, you probably don't know, the company that I work for the last 10 years, the one that I've built so many projects for, poured myself into for nearly a decade, that company is being acquired. And if I'm honest, it's scary because I don't know what that means for me. And there is a very real chance that I will lose my job. Um, and even though I'm doing all of the right things, updating my resume, planning, praying, there is still that quiet fear of what if everything changes? And if you're watching this video, then I assume you may be in your own version of that right now, a place where you do not have control, but you still have to show up and be your best self. And so today I want to talk through what I'm learning in this space because I'm still very much learning. That space that I'm calling the middle, right in between what you expected and what you're actually experiencing, and some practical tips on how you can prepare wisely without losing your peace in the process. So here's what I've learned so far. Control is one of the most subtle idols we carry. We just don't call it that. We say things like, I just like to plan, or I just got to know what's next. I need to know what's happening. And control is sneaky because it convinces you that if you can just plan perfectly, then you can avoid the pain. If you could just stay one step ahead, then you won't get blindsided. And so when I first got the news about the acquisition, I went straight into fix it mode. I blew the dust off my resume. I started reaching out to my entire corporate network. I was really just trying to leverage every resource I had in a way that made me feel protected. Um, because I wanted to outrun the unknown. But then one morning, I was sitting on this couch, and I felt the Holy Spirit whisper, can you trust me in the middle? And that hit me hard because in that moment, I realized I only feel peace when I have figured out the plan. Once I've mapped out the next 3 steps, built myself a solid backup plan, and then triple checked that the backup to the backup to the backup, that's in place and that's foolproof, that's when I can relax. That's when I feel peace about my situation. And I say I trust God with my life, but what I really trust is my ability to manage outcomes. And I had to sit with that reality for myself because that is not faith. That's really fear that I've dressed up as a strategy to protect myself. And when you live that way, you start to think that peace is something that you earn by doing all that you can instead of something that God gives freely. And so as a result, you start believing that control keeps you safe. The reality is, no matter how hard I try, I cannot protect myself better than God can. I mean, I can prepare, I can plan, I can show up and pray about it. But the moment I start believing it's all on me, I step out of grace and immediately into anxiety. And so now I'm learning what real trust looks like. And it's not about pretending that like this moment is not impacting me and I'm going through something, because that is very real. But it's saying, God, I don't know what's next. And I'm okay with that because I know you do. So let's talk about some practical steps because I love frameworks, and I wanted to share how I've been grounding myself right now because maybe these steps can help you if you're in a similar space. So, we have to manage the mental spiral because when you're in the middle of chaos, your mind does not stop running. I already know it has the worst case scenario on replay playing over and over and over again in your mind. And before you can even have a positive thought about the situation, it's already been drowned out by fear and doubts. I get it. I know it's exhausting, but it's human. And so, since we already know that's how our minds work, we have to manage that mental load differently. So, we can't control what happens, but we can control what we rehearse in our heads. And the best way I found to do that is to start the day in stillness, not scrolling, not the news, not emails, just stillness. And when I'm in that space, I write down three things: what's true, what I am afraid of, and what I can do today. What's true, that keeps me grounded in reality because, like, I do still have a job today. I still have options. My skill set is in demand. God is in control. That is true. I can accept that. Also, when I write what I'm afraid of, that keeps me honest because when you don't speak on those fears, they don't go away. They get louder, honestly, if you do not address them. So, I do want to be honest with myself and say, what am I afraid of right now in this moment? And then what I can do, that reminds me that it doesn't have to be perfect. I just have to make progress because as a recovering perfectionist, I want to look at the whole thing. And when I write, what can I do today? That just allows me to take a step back and say, what is the one thing I can do to move the needle a little bit? I don't have to own all of it, but what can you do right now that will help your future self? And those things really help me to start my morning, in addition to my quiet time with God and reading my devotion and my Bible. But naturally, as the day starts, people in life get the life in. I start feeling those spiraling thoughts come. And what I've learned to do is really catch them and change them so I can reground myself immediately. So, what I've been doing is switching what if to even if and being honest about that statement. So instead of saying something like, what if I lose my job? I'll say, even if I do, I know I'm still provided for. Because that one little shift from what if to even if, it keeps the possibility that it may happen. It doesn't deny the fear that I feel, but it puts the control back into the place where it belongs with God and not in my hands. Listen, faith does not mean ignoring reality. Please don't get me wrong. I am feeling it, and I'm sure you are too. So I'm updating my LinkedIn. I'm having conversations with the right people. I'm taking the smart steps, but I am not panicking in the process, and that's the difference. I'm being very intentional about asking God to show me what's mine to handle and what's going to be His to hold. Because that really is the difference between moving in wisdom versus worry. And one of the easiest ways to figure out if something belongs in your plate or if you need to give it back to God is simply to just write it out. Write out the task that you want to do and write out the outcome you're looking for from that task. And if it is something that you cannot control, that is your signal to probably go ahead and give that to God. And you'll want to revisit that task and see where you can make a real change instead of trying to control the result. For an example, I might say in my situation, I need to redo my resume so that I can get another job. If my goal is to get a job from this resume, then disappointment is going to find me quickly because the truth is, I am not in control of that. A recruiter has to see my resume, choose to reach out, set up an interview, and then the company still has to make an offer. That is a whole process that I have no control over. So I can't let my resume be a gateway to a new job. I have to shift my perspective and say, I will update my resume so I can have the best digital representation of who I am. So when the right opportunity does show up, I'm prepared and I'm ready. That's something I can own. And when my resume is done, I have met that goal. I have polished my digital presence. So that is me showing up prepared, but still letting God handle the pieces that He is in control of. And here's the thing, once you understand that principle, you can start to see where it applies everywhere, whether it's your job or your marriage or your kids. That tension that you feel between being prepared and panicking, it looks the same, but it feels so much different because you have peace. when you're just preparing with the Lord on your side as opposed to trying to control everything. And I know we want to do everything, but what that means is we end up carrying things that was never ours to hold. So there is a verse that has been grounding me in this season, and it's Isaiah 26:3. And it says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you." Because we trust in you, perfect peace. Not partial peace, not peace that depends on whether or not it works out the way you want it to. Perfect peace that won't make sense to anybody that is looking at your circumstance. And listen, I am not trying to preach false happiness or fake positivity because every day is not easy. Some mornings I cry, some days I question what's going on, what's going to happen next. But even in that, I know I'm held because I've seen God's pattern in my life. Every time, and I do mean every time something has fallen apart, something truer has been rebuilt in its place. And I don't think this season is going to be any different. So maybe God is shaking the ground beneath you, not to destroy you, but to plant you somewhere new. And maybe he's not punishing you, but actually positioning you exactly where he needs you to be. And I've been holding on to that word positioning because a lot of times when you're being repositioned by God, it looks like a loss while it's happening, but later you will realize exactly why you had to be put here. I don't know what's going to happen with my job yet. It's really up in the air. But either way, I want to walk into this next phase in peace, not panic, because peace is going to be our proof that we trusted God in this moment. So wherever you are, just take a deep breath, slow down, stop trying to figure it all out because God is not surprised by the thing that shocked you. He is not up in heaven pacing back and forth trying to figure out how am I going to figure this out. He already knows. He is in control. And trust me, you are going to make it through this middle. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it valuable and helpful. If you did, please go ahead and like and comment. I would love to chat with you. And if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I want you to be a part of this community. We are growing together over here. Before I leave, I just want to remind you, you do not have to be in control because you know the person that is. He has it all handled. So trust in him this week, and I will see you next week. Until next time, bye-bye.